Thank you, Cam. As Cam said, I'm Chance Foltz with Fortified Data. I run our service delivery at Fortified. But this isn't a sales pitch for Fortified. We just want to talk about what we do, how it impacts multiple industries, the importance of data, and I'm sure I've had many discussions with a lot of folks out in the hallway today. And, you know, data is something that challenges almost everybody in some aspect in the working in IT services or IT-related businesses. So, quick agenda, why managing data matters, what is managed services, you know, a couple of business cases. I have BJ up front here with me today. He's going to talk about a success story we had, and then a little bit about the future of how managed service providers work and data management, what it might look like moving ahead. You know, this slide's got a lot of good facts on it. I think it's kind of interesting from the standpoint that it's nice having Gartner and Forrester and McKinsey giving some statistics there. But I think everybody realizes, right? Data, having good data for decisions is really important, right? A lot of money for organizations gets spent making sure the infrastructure is there in place that can support not just data operations, but all IT operations. Companies that make good use of their data tend to make better decisions. And real-time analytics, everybody wants them, right? Every business I talk to, every group that I talk to, I talked to a company yesterday in the auto manufacturing industry. It's quite simply, they've got a huge data warehouse. They get a ton of reports out of that data warehouse. It gets loaded twice a day. They run an evening load and an early morning load. And it's not fast enough. The salespeople, the people that are working with the vendors, they need the data more up to date. Twice a day loads don't work. And again, everything on the other side of the ledger, right? Downtime is bad. Security's a problem. You know, inefficiencies slows down the business. These are things that we see all the time. IBM says $3 trillion is what they estimate bad data cost. I like the bottom one, unstructured data. You know, 15, 20 years ago, no, let's say 20 to 30 years ago, if it came out of a database, it was structured data, right? It's very well defined. It's tabular in nature. It's very well structured. Very easy to move around well-structured data. And then, but that's not great for the web, right? For a lot of interconnected applications. So in the early 2000s, what? Semi-structured became a big thing. We've always had CSV files and EDI files, but semi-structured, XML, it's a little more flexible. It's not hard and fast, but it can move around and very portable. So that became a big thing. And how do we use that? And how do we manage that? How do we keep track of it? But now, at least for the last, I'm going to say, from my experience, 7, 8 years, maybe more for certain industries, the unstructured data has become critical for a lot of organizations. Unstructured data, things like pictures. Picture, what does this picture mean? Is it tagged? Does it have some metadata behind it that we can use to better run our business, report on our business? Emails, right? Huge source of governance, right? So how do we manage that? How do we bring that into some kind of system or governance, or be able to effectively leverage it to help our businesses operate, to report better? So all of those things, I think probably most of us in this room experience one or more of those elements. So managed services, quite simply, you know, managed services to me, and I think there's some, you know, classical definitions, but it's outsourcing part of your business, right? And we can say outsourcing or insourcing. We're taking a function of our business and we're having someone help with that isn't necessarily a direct employee, a contractor, an organization. So I know a lot of groups see managed services in IT especially. I kind of look at HVAC as kind of a managed service, right? I've got a big air conditioner on top of my building. I don't have any air conditioning specialist, but I've got a company that comes in and takes care of that. So they're managing that equipment, and I pay them a cost. Typically, I like that to know what that cost is going to be. That's part of the negotiation. So when it comes to IT services, because IT is so wide, it has so many aspects and facets to it, right? I can maybe I'm showing my age, but I can remember back when IT was basically, can we make two computers talk together? Oh, that's a big win. Can I get email on somebody's desktop? And now it's cybersecurity, it's pipelines, it's ring fences for applications. It's so wide. So it's hard to find or to develop internally a group that can do everything we need. So managed services business has been strong for a while in IT. I work with a few large IT managed services groups that does everything from security, user access management. I've seen Salesforce as a service managed element. I've seen ServiceNow, help desk, ticketing systems as a managed service. So, and it makes a lot of sense. Some businesses say, you know what, we are really good at making mousetraps. We are really good at making mousetraps, building them, designing them, engineering them. Ooh, we're not so good at running the database, keeping the security up to date, keeping our network infrastructure in place. So I'm going to focus on building the better mousetraps, producing them more effectively, and then I'm going to bring in a service provider to help me do those things that I'm not as good at, that I don't want to be good at in some cases. For other clients or other companies, you know, they're like, no, we want to control all of our own destiny. We want to have a strong IT group internally. We want to own all this stuff. Ooh, but I'm not sure about how to effectively build a data warehouse or set up replication across multiple data domains. I'm going to bring in an expert to help with just that small area and be a resource. So there's a lot of reasons that companies use different kinds of managed services. I'm focusing, you know, today on data because that's our business and I've got the most experience with that. But I think most of these topics apply across the board to other disciplines, especially within the IT landscape. Expertise without building a large team. From personal experience, we have several clients that have really good data engineers on their staff, but they've got one or two, and they need help 24/7. So a managed service provider company, you know, can help make sure you've got all the coverage you need. So that's just one reason that some companies say, you know what, we're going to keep a little bit, not a little bit, we're going to keep ownership of this discipline internally, but I'm going to bring on a managed service provider to assist in, you know, making sure I've got 24/7 coverage. Scalability and flexibility, especially for dynamic businesses that are really seasonal. You know, they've got a strong IT team, they've got a strong data engineering team, but there's certain times of the year they need the expanded bandwidth, capacity, or they need to bring on a new discipline. So we work with several clients that fall into that category. The 24/7 monitoring and support, you know, that goes back to being an extension of an existing team. Or again, I have a lot of clients. I've got a big banking client, and banking is usually really strong in IT. This particular banking client determined that they were not very good at managing, monitoring, maintaining 24/7 operations on their data. They're really good at a lot of the applications they developed. They're really good at being a bank. They had struggles keeping in this particular case, database engineers on staff. Turnover was very high, very demanding environment. So they said, you know, we're obviously not very good at hiring data engineers. We're even worse at keeping them. Maybe we should look at a service. And they're one of my largest customers today, and they're a really good customer. It took some organizational maturity working with them. And I think that when we talk pros and cons of managed services, there's both. You know, there's some positives, extending your staff, getting more coverage, you know, getting specialty skills brought in. Those are all big pros. Some of the cons, making sure you understand what, as an organization, what it is you're getting, right? You know, managed services is not staff aug. Some companies aren't mature enough really for managed services. For somebody that says, we are going to do these X functions for your business. We're going to take care of all of this. But you need that. You need something, you need X, right? Or something that was unanticipated. And that's not under the service control. So, you know, a lot of companies aren't very good at that. We worked with this particular bank, Northeastern Bank, and they, you know, they're like, oh, yeah, we need these functions. We've got huge gaps on these functions. They weren't very, I'll say, mature in that respect, realizing actually what they needed. So we helped with them. We worked with them. We expanded some coverage. We pulled back some coverage. And, you know, as from my company's perspective, it was a good journey, right? Helping them mature their business processes to be able to use a managed service provider. And now they don't have to worry about hiring data engineers, and they don't have to worry about retaining them. That's another pro I put on the managed services side. Some companies have trouble keeping an IT cybersecurity specialist or a router and firewall specialist or a AWS infrastructure storage guru, because it's tough, right? Especially if you're, you know, of that size, that one individual has a lot of pressure on them, doesn't really have a wide support, and is a break point. Can be very tough, and it can be tough to keep those folks on staff. And when they leave, it's hard to replace. It's hard to have redundancy when that person wants to take that 2-week honeymoon to Hawaii. So I've seen that. I literally had a company 9 months ago say, listen, we need your services just for a couple of months. Our main guy is getting married. He's going to be out of pocket for 3 weeks. We want a couple of months worth of coverage to make sure that, to ramp up, to cover him while he's gone, and then to ramp down after he's back, provided he comes back. So, but sometimes for individual companies, it's hard to hire that specific skill you need. I can say from experience, we don't have a lot of the same issues hiring good quality database administrators and engineers and keeping them on staff. Because at a company, at an individual company, you might be the only one there. You're kind of, you know, you're the linchpin for the data, the heart of the data operation, and it can be really challenging. But as a managed service provider, we have really good success at finding high quality people and retaining them. Because we're working on multiple things. You're working with a lot of colleagues that have similar interests, similar professional interests and curiosities as you do. So, and absolutely, before I was with Fortified, I was working at a manufacturing plant, and we had a nice IT team. We were all the tech people in the company. We like to think we were the smartest people in the room. I don't know if we were. But we certainly thought we were. And it was, you know, but it was tough. We had an AS400. It was almost impossible to keep an AS400 programmer on staff at the time. A, they were in high demand, so the salaries kept jumping, and those guys kept moving. And B, there wasn't a lot of depth in the position. So it was really rough. I wish I would have had a managed service provider for AS400 back then. But that was a challenge that we had to deal with. And then again, another thing in the circle here is automated maintenance and patching. And really, it's not so much about automated maintenance and patching. It's about making sure whatever the service provider does for you, they're building systems, putting in best practices across the board to help the organization be better. So, you know, whether that's automated maintenance and patching, whether it's vulnerability checks, whether it's having a routine for penetration checks in your infrastructure, or storage analysis, but whatever, that they're helping elevate the engagement for the individual company that you're working with. So I've covered a few of these when we're talking. The operational costs and efficiencies, we save a lot of companies some money. We cost some companies, as a Fortified Data as a company, probably more than they would like to spend. It really depends on what you're getting, how much you need. What I usually find for our clients that have, I don't know, I'm going to say a moderate amount of data servers, 50 to 60 or more, we usually provide a pretty good return on investment. We save them some cost as compared to managing and maintaining and building that staff internally. For a customer with 1 or 2 servers or 5 servers, 5 database servers, we're probably a little more expensive. But I think we do more if we're actually being comparative. We've got 24/7 round-the-clock coverage. All right, we cover, so that's kind of hard to get on a tight budget for an individual person or 2 in an environment. So, I think because of the nature of the SLAs, the incident response time, we are built. Our whole world, not our whole world, but a good chunk of our world is making sure that A, we're proactively taking care of a client's environment, but B, you know, when something does go wrong, that we're very fast to get on it, right? That's really the biggest thing. If you ask me, you know, are your clients happy with you? If we're making sure they're up all the time, and when there is a problem, we're there to immediately assist, that's the number one thing that our clients expect out of us. And I think that holds true for any discipline in a managed service provider. You want to make sure they're bringing the best practices, that they've got the coverages you need. You got to make sure that they can do the technologies you need. If anybody in here says, hey, Oracle, I got Oracle databases on-prem and in the cloud, can you help? I'd say absolutely. We've got a practice built around that. We can absolutely help. If you said, hey, we got all these MongoDB instances, we don't have a practice around MongoDB. We would not be a good partner in that case. So, you know, again, true with anything. If you're looking for cybersecurity and you need somebody that's really good with Cisco or really good with Nortel, you got to make sure it's in their wheelhouse so you get the right partner. Oops. Security, make sure, again, since we're in the IT space, I think security permeates almost most aspects of what we do. Got to make sure it's in place for managed service. I know from the data side, well, as a MSP, we don't focus on compliance, HIPAA compliance, PCI compliance, PII compliance. We do work with our clients to make sure the policies they have established are enforced, but we don't own the compliance element. Most of our clients don't want that. They need to own it internal. It's an internal governance thing. But if you do need that for whatever reason, for whatever discipline, you've got to make sure it's there. That last bullet I find, or the last gear wheel there, is I find it interesting. We have, over the years, several clients. They've got really good database people. They've really got good data engineers. They got data analysts. They're really good. Why do they need us? And again, true, I think, across all the disciplines, the major IT disciplines. The fact is, they want their people innovating. They want them saying, what can we do to run the business better, right? They don't want them doing standard best practice management and maintenance, responding to ads, moves, and changes and break fixes. They want to say, listen, I can farm that out. I can send it to my managed service provider. They'll take care of all this. My most knowledgeable people that not only are data engineers or data analysts, but that also know my business, whether it's banking, pharmaceutical, they can help us build better systems or advance the way we work to the next tier. So I think sometimes that's an unexpected benefit, you know, when you free up some of your most talented people, they can move things to the next level. I'd like to ask BJ to come up. BJ, I'll let you explain the situation and we'll talk. BJ and I got to work together. First time we met was 3 weeks ago today.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So I'll let you explain it.
So BJ Byer with Guardian Savings Bank, CIO there. I am not a database expert. I know just enough. I don't have a DBA on staff. We had an issue. One of our systems was supposed to be set up in a high availability mode, so the database would fail over, which is great in theory until the failover piece is what breaks. The failover cluster is what actually broke and wouldn't allow the database to fail over. We couldn't fail it over. We couldn't bring it up in a standalone mode. We were kind of stuck. The vendor that built this for us, we still work with, and we reached out to them. They basically were not much help. They said it's a Windows problem. It's not our application. So we were kind of stuck. So I reached out to ATC. I said, hey, I'm in a pinch. I need some help. And I think that was at like 4 o'clock on a Thursday. And by 4:30, I was in a call with Fortified. They got me in touch with them, said this is exactly, you know, what we think you're looking for. And they were able to help us. He's talking about the managed services, you know, available 24/7. I think that is definitely something that was helpful. They were available and able to help us immediately. Within 30 minutes, I was on a call, and we were getting started to triaging the problem. I think probably about 4 hours of banging on it. We did get it working, and again, it was a tough issue. Something that was supposed to be redundant and resilient was not, and that was the hard part. They were professional. They were helpful, knowledgeable. So it was a great experience.
So that's a great example. Now, with BJ and Guardian Bank, that was, you know, we were fortunate. We work with ATC at Fortified Data. BJ knows the folks at ATC and works with them, so we were able to make a connection. That's not managed services. But it is an emergency support service. As a business, we offer because we are a managed services provider. We've got the staff. We've got the capability and flexibility to step in when there are emergencies. Was making sure I wasn't getting kicked off. That, you know, we can help clients and you know, potential partners in the future. So yeah, BJ called in, and you know, I don't know how many folks have ever gotten that call 4:30 on a Thursday or a Friday. Something's down, something you're responsible for, something's broke. That's a lonely feeling, you know. honestly, from Fortified Data's perspective, not that we love it because people are experiencing an outage, BJ, but we're built for it, right? We're built to help. Would I be happy if it came in at 8 in the morning? Yeah, that'd be great. Happens at 4:30, doesn't matter. We've got the staffing and the expertise and the rollover. 5-minute warning? Oh. Good.
So it happened overnight. We don't know exactly what caused the issue to happen. We were rolling out security software, and I'm pretty sure the server was kind of limping along in that security update. We kind of pushed it over. So it happened late at night, night before. We were told about it at 7:30 the next morning, and we spent the entire day ourselves trying to figure out what was the story and figure it out. And basically, exactly what was there, we used some
When BJ called in, I think he said we were about the fourth party, third outside party he was going to call.
yeah, I've reached out to a couple different vendors and said that we found an issue, and that was the other problem is we didn't have anything pre-set up for the emergency secrets. A couple of vendors I talked to said, "Oh, you don't have to do that. So we're going to have to get working together with a contract in place." A lot of steps to get to that point. Without saying it as much, should have been set up before the issue. I understand it, but at the same time, I was in an emergency situation and that's the service.
Yeah, having ATC in the middle there actually worked out really well. Because a lot of times we do have standard processes. If the Acme Rocket Company called me right now and said, oh my goodness, got a down cluster, got a database, I got to get it online, my CEO's screaming at me, nobody can do any work, you know, I've got a couple documents. We got to get the NDA signed, we got to get a basic emergency support. Sometimes that's quick, sometimes it's slow. We've tried to automate it on our side. But with BJ and working through ATC, you know, I said, hey, BJ, there's paperwork. We'll get it figured out. We've got a common friend in the business here, and let's get looking at this now because you never know. Maybe it was something simple and it could have been solved in 15 minutes. Sometimes you get started and it's 4 hours or 8 hours, or you get a partial win to get something operational now and then you go later, the next day or whatever. You never know. It could go a lot of different ways. But having ATC as a partner there was great because let me know, BJ works with them, we work with them. Let's just start working, figure the problem out, and we'll get papers signed as they get signed. So, BJ, thank you for coming and talking today. Future, right? I think it's no secret. I'm guessing most of you see it in your businesses. Data just keeps growing. Even with good governance and good data lifecycle management, where you're controlling how much you keep, for most successful businesses, the data footprint keeps growing. And then there's more kinds of data, right? More kinds of data. For a lot of companies, they've got all their operational data, all their production data, all their transactional data. Maybe they're capturing data from production lines or sensors. They've got all that. That's standard. But now there's a new initiative. The new initiative, we've got to govern our data. We can't have too much. We can't have privacy. Well, that's great. We can help with that. But outside of that, you've just created another huge data set, you know, that's on top of your existing data. So it continues to grow. Different requirements. Security. We've got to have security audits to make sure nothing's being accessed. It shouldn't be accessed within the right times or the right workstations or the right locales. It's great. It's a lot of data that gets generated, needs to be stored, need to be reported on. So I don't think it's a big surprise. Data keeps going. I tried to make this whole presentation today without using the word AI, because all I see is AI everywhere. And that's great for those companies that are doing it. From a managed service provider for AI, especially since my company is data focused, the AI that we're working with, we work with companies to make sure they've got good data sets that can be fed into machine learning models, that can be used in vector databases for AI toolkits. So, but again, that creates another category of data, another location that data's got to be stored, managed, archived. It's got to be clean, right? You can't be putting everybody's personal identifiable information into those learning sets. So, again, but there'll be more of that. And as a managed service provider, we help clients do that. Sometimes it's really a little less on the managed service side and more on the project consulting side. But we can work it both ways. And I think other companies that you might see that have a strong play into that, if I was looking for an AI MSP, somebody to help me, make my information I've got on internal systems smarter, be able to do some automated chat, some really intelligent help. There's a few of those groups out there, but I would make sure that they, as part of their service, is that they do handle the things like the cleanup, the life cycle, the rotation, the new learning models. So again, I look at it as a big picture of data. What do we need the data for? Where does it need to be formatted? How can we put it into place? Regardless, it's continuing to grow. New tool sets to do new things using the data gets moved around a lot and just grows the overall components. I work with a company. They're actually a NASCAR racing company. They've got a couple of cars out on Sundays. It's kind of cool. For many years, they capture so much data on those cars, the telemetry data, when they're doing their track practices. They've got sensors on everything. They got sensors on the drivers, in their suits, in their helmets, everything. They capture so much data. It's kind of cool, actually. But they're racers. They're not data people. Now, they do have some good data scientists on staff, but they don't have DB management, DB administration, DB maintenance. We fill that role for that race team. And it's really cool. They've got some really good data expertise. They got data scientists. They got data engineers. God love those guys. They don't know a thing about the cloud. And they've recently determined, as we've worked with them, at some tracks, they've got great performance getting their data in and out of their local data center. At certain tracks, it's terrible. We worked with them. We figured out you got a lot better bandwidth to Azure in this particular case from these tracks. So that's something we do. They're a managed service client. We help them determine which tracks do we want to send the data directly to our availability group setup. Which ones do we want to send it to an Azure replica and have it replicate back? So again, they got some really talented people. They got some really good data people. They don't have any cloud skills. And I think that's going to be more and more important for companies when it comes to data management in general. Single data center, great. Hybrid, got some data at home here and some data in the cloud, AWS or Google or both or some other public data cloud provider, remote data center. And then some companies, depending on their business models and what they need, cross-cloud. I need this app to be able to run against AWS or against Azure, and I need the replication to be seamless. I think those are things that we see our clients working on today. And then, of course, data-driven decision-making. That is, everybody wants it. Everybody wants the awesome Power BI or Tableau reports that basically tell me how to run my business. It's got all the key pieces of information in there. It's got some good analytics behind it. So, and companies do get a competitive advantage, the ones that can really utilize their data to help them make good business decisions. Do we have any questions? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, from Fortified's perspective, we have 4 platforms we fully support and manage. Microsoft SQL, basically everything from 2010 forward. Oracle, MySQL, Postgres. We don't do MongoDB. I've had a couple, the reason I bring that up, as a company, we won't do something if we can't do it right. We have full practices built around those platforms, and those platforms across, we've got Google, AWS, and Azure. Certified people, knowledgeable people, so we can support across those 3 cloud platforms, of course local. If you've got your favorite remote data center like an Expedient or CDI, remote data center folks, I find it funny. Years ago, you needed a local data center because you couldn't send much data very far, very fast. Today, everything's interconnected pretty well. So, does it matter if it's local or if it's 2 states over? It's probably 5 to 8 milliseconds of difference. So those are all the same. Now, when you get into the big public clouds, then you've got all their different layers of stuff in there. But, yeah. Anything else I can answer? Any discussion points, things that you're seeing in your worlds that data's giving you some heartburn or headaches or opportunities? Any?
That's a yes, but not
Yeah.
right now.
Not right now?
Talk about it right now.
All right. Cam?
I think we're close to wrapping up here. There's some common themes that you probably heard today that Chance hit on. Resilience, right? Tia talked all about resilience. That's kind of the nature of their business, right? Is helping reduce risk, right? And be prepared for what you don't know is going to happen. Having an MSP on board with a specific set of skills that your team doesn't have, right? It's not that you can't do it. We run into that all the time. Like, why can't we just do it ourselves? You absolutely can. It just takes time, money, training, and then you got to keep those people on staff. So we run into the same thing at ATC, right? I talk to people when they're trying to figure out, why would I use a trusted advisor? It's no different. Can you interview all these providers and figure out who's the best? You absolutely can. Can I save you weeks or months or years worth of time and get you the best solution quicker? Yes, because that's what we do. So the other piece, Greg hit on it during the lunchtime chat, was letting them run your business, right? Having them be focused on using their particular set of skills. He said to be a better home builder, right? Chance mentioned it a few different ways, but whatever your business is, right? Outsourcing or insourcing, or however you want to say it, letting somebody who's highly focused on repetitive tasks, so you don't have to burn cycles doing that. There's definitely a cost benefit there. Depending on the size of the organization. I think you did a nice job of covering that too. So,
I'll say from my perspective, with half of our clients, it is repetitive tasks. Making sure the basic care, feeding, backups are taken, redundancy has been accounted for, all the basics are in place. And then for the other half, I know I'm generalizing a bit, but they want us, they need those things, but they want us because we have a wider array of skills. You need a data pipeline, I've got specialists on staff to do that. You need Databricks set up, we do that. Need Snowflake administration or Snowflake support, we can do that. So it provides additional capability. So I'm going to say half is, making sure our organization is protected and is in the best scenario to succeed. And then with a lot of our clients, it's, got that box checked, but we also get some additional skills and capabilities that we haven't developed internally.
Excellent. Well said. Let's show some appreciation for Chance and for BJ sharing their time.
Actually, it's BJ. BJ and I met 3 weeks ago, literally at 4 o'clock, with a problem, and it was great working with BJ, and I was really happy when he agreed to come today and share the story.
I used to have a similar role to BJ at a large manufacturing organization, and I didn't have DBAs. I was the closest thing we had, and I was not anywhere near what a DBA is. So I backed it up. I made sure it was up and running, and if something went wrong, I wish I'd have known about these guys because things went wrong. So awesome. Thanks so much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.